I'm Bez, co-founder of Drop Gym, British champion in bodybuilding.
I'm Amrit, the CEO and founder of Walfinch, which is home care franchising. And here we are today. This is very good. I always wanted to be a bodybuilder growing up, but alas, that did not happen. Did a bit of weightlifting actually, competitive.
Yeah, you envisioned it at least.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, when I was around 16, I wanted to be just massive, right? That was my aspiration, was to be 120k pure muscle and compete for amateur bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And it makes me think to now I'm 38 and I'm thinking, well, the reason I train has changed. I've been training consistently since I was 16. There may or may not be more donuts at different stages. But now I'm training thinking, how many of my kids can I pick up at the same time? I've got 3 children, 7, 4, and 1. And I'm like, okay, if I put 1 on the shoulders, 2 on the arms,
can manage.
This is it. And I'm like, so this, and I've talked to friends of mine thinking, well, okay, when you're in your 40s, that changes, right? The reason you train or you start training or you start training again changes. A lot of people go through this whole thing in their 30s of just falling out.
I mean, the age group of people who actually get in the gym and do it regularly is increasing, but the amount of people that come into the gym and say that I want to train so I'm able to play with my kids or carry my kids is very high. Also, what's high is that the injuries that come in, or the injuries that happen among our clients from playing with their kids and not having the strength to be in an unorthodox angle or carry one up the stairs, is super high. So there's actually
is that true? Really?
Yeah, it's actually, so I'd say a ratio of maybe 1 in 10 consultations is that specific reason. They have their second child, they realize that they're going to play football, go hiking, do things with their kids.
Yeah.
And they say I need to have strength and actually just be a physical mum or dad.
It's very interesting. I mean, when I had my first child, so I've always lifted, I've always been pretty strong, but I just thought, gosh, I've also now got to be a role model for like health, right?
Yeah.
I'm not only, it's got to be practical, because actually kids are tiring and it's just Duracell batteries, right? But also the second thing is thinking, well, I've also got to eat in a certain way. I've got to behave in a certain way.
Because you think they'll see it and
they're going to model it.
Yeah.
So you
and that does happen from a young age.
And do you see that? Do you hear
habits they see and pick up? They actually end up, the likeliness of them carrying those when they're at an older age is super high. And before you just think it, but now we have sort of proven data to say that.
Talk me through this. So what sort of...
So like a child who's 3 years old seeing their parents eat, bad food, drink alcohol, smoke, drink, has a much higher percentage chance of getting to a certain age where they can do those things and actually doing them than someone who doesn't. So just visual, right? You're not necessarily giving your child a cigarette or a cake. I hope you're not.
Yeah. I'll be stopping right now.
or a piece of cake, but just visually them seeing it, it kind of ingrains in their mind. And people underestimate how I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. My 1-year-old is sort of learning to walk and talk, but my 3-year-old is very capable of dissecting things and understanding them and questioning them. And, doesn't forget it, or at least subconsciously, they grow up with these things in mind and end up, maybe drinking alcohol regularly rather than semi-regularly or never.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I actually, talking about alcohol, I didn't drink until I was 28. It was a total, literally teetotal.
Was that religion or just...
Actually, it was training. So growing up, it was not religion. Come to any of my family parties, you'll realise it's very much the opposite. I'm Punjabi, and so I think the most whiskey consumption that happens worldwide happens in that group of people, right? And probably at my family parties. So, but I sort of look at that and I think until the age of 28, it was the people I was hanging out with. So because I got into sports at an early age, and I was lifting at an early age, so all the friends I had were like boxers and people that were lifting or athletes of some description or other. And so everyone would eat the same way, not drink the same way, and it was kind of normal. And I continued doing that for so long, and then it became just habit. And I thought, well, I don't need booze on a night out to have a good night, and so on. And it was very interesting how that kind of just becomes your lifestyle, right? And
yeah, of course. I mean, even myself, because of bodybuilding, I very rarely ever had any alcohol until a certain age. And now that I might socialize sometimes and have the odd drink, kills my energy levels for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
My recovery, everything is pretty bad,
Yes.
and you realize when you haven't had it. So when you got to 28 and you did have a hangover one day, you're probably like, what the hell is this? How am I so incapable of concentrating, of waking up and feeling okay in the morning, energy levels.
It's that knock-on effect as well, because you wake up the next morning and you wake up wanting a burger, and you then have you roll into having a bad diet for the next day, and then you get into this downward spiral of that whole thing.
And people will justify alcohol now by saying that I'm going to have like a 0 or a slimline gin and tonic, which is not necessarily fixing the problem. You're just taking out the carbs that are attached to the alcohol, but it's still alcohol.
So it's not the direction of travel I want to go in, but while we're on this subject, I'm really interested in your kind of take on alcohol for health and wellness and lifting and muscle mass and all of that. So, what is the impact of it?
So I think it's detrimental to everything for like a period of 2 to 3 days. So let's say you drink alcohol twice a week. That means you have 6 days of bad recovery, bad sleep. Your hormones become imbalanced. So ideally, if you're a client, I would tell you shouldn't drink more than once a week. Being really optimal, you shouldn't drink at all. But like I said, the culture of people is to just stick to things that suit them.
Yeah.
So if they can justify having a drink and saying it's no carbs, they'll do it. If they can justify having a drink because of a certain setting or a birthday or an event, they'll do it. But actually, if you're trying to reach your goals or change your composition, it's as damaging, if not the most damaging thing you can do. I'd rather you have a burger than a pint.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's because of calorie or because of the...
A burger means your calories are going to be a little bit higher for the day.
Yeah.
But like I just mentioned, alcohol means your body is going to be dysfunctional for 2 to 3 days. It's more damaging.
So I PT with you guys, so every time I want to drink, I'm going to have a burger and come back and you can do my body mass. But no, that is super interesting. So you're saying 3 days, give or take, it's going to...
Yeah, the toxins are going to be in your liver, they're going to be across your muscles, and they take about 2 to 3 days to actually leave. And, your liver is super important for your hormone production.
Yeah.
And you need your muscles to train.
And so, so talking... Right, I was at an event last night. I'm at an event tomorrow night. I go to 3 of these things a week at the moment. Certainly in the last quarter of the year, there's loads of this stuff. And it's all centered around alcohol, quite frankly, right? So what do I do in that situation?
Don't have it.
Yeah.
I mean...
just straight up, just don't partake at all.
You said you didn't drink till you're 28.
Yeah.
I'm sure you already had the ability to socialize and network by the time you're 28.
So if you're not me...
if you're not you, maybe you need alcohol for like some Dutch courage, and you can mingle because of it, or you are still trying to impress someone who is higher on the ladder than you are, and it's just part of what you do, right? So there's scenarios where you can maybe find it acceptable, but what are your goals? Maybe you're already fit and you're just having a more relaxed 3-4 months before you go back into your fitness goals. But if you're unhealthy and trying to fix a health problem or actually change your composition for the sake of longevity, then have a Diet Coke or a glass of water.
So one of the things I often do at these sort of things is I'll take the glass of wine, then nurse the glass of wine the whole night, basically. So I'm either pretending to sip at it or hardly sipping at it, because I realized about 2 or 3 years ago when I started going to a lot of these events, I was like, hold on a second, in this situation for the last quarter of the year, I'm basically drinking 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I'm like, that's, even, and I was feeling horrible at that, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to turn that completely around, and then so my alcohol consumption is in a social setting with my wife or with my friends or whatever it is, as opposed to in a work setting where then I'm thinking, well, I want to clear head. I also want to be able to wake up, come and do a pod here with you and be fresh.
One glass of wine is not going to overload your liver. And it also depends on what your body is used to.
Yeah.
So if you're a person that has 2 glasses of wine twice a week and your body's adapted to that, different conversation. If
Right.
you're someone who never drinks and you have 2 glasses of wine,
Yeah.
your body's dealing with something completely new. Like everything's put into units, right? You have guys that go to the pub and they'll have 10 pints in a row, and they're okay with that. So for them, having the odd drink is actually not too damaging, but that's just because they're unhealthy already. Doesn't make it okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have guys that never drink and 2 pints, and they're probably taking a flight to Spain, or it's like a completely different direction. So it's my stance can be strong with things, but it's always based on what realistically we can get from people.
Yeah.
If I tell someone to dumb down their alcohol intake and make 3 evenings into 2, and they end up doing that, I've ticked the box, and maybe in 2-3 months we have a conversation where I say, okay, you're only going to have 1 evening a week where you actually drink anything. And if it's an event and they say I'm going to meet someone really important, or I'm hosting the event, I need to mix. I say, have a bottle of wine if you want. It's like an important thing. You've had 2-3 really good months with me. That's completely okay.
I've got to say, this is the thing that I really like about the conversation that we've had. I've known you for a couple of years now, but the first conversation we had was in your gym in West Hampstead when I had an office around there, and you were just really realistic. And I thought, well, okay, I can get on board with this. And it was incremental change. And I believe that in business. I believe that in health. I believe that in parenting. Whatever walk of life it is, it's just that 1% movement and keep compounding it. And I really got that sense. You speak to a lot of personal trainers or health people, and they're like, well, just
throw the kitchen sink.
That's it. Just change it today, right now. It's not practical, right? With so many people.
And if they give you this long list of things and you don't do 2 or 3 of them, you end up not doing 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of downward spiral of effect. And our gyms and our team in general is focused on turning what is the most optimal thing or what is science into a lifestyle product.
Yeah.
And getting people to actually follow and feel like they're moving in the right direction, and then cranking up the detail as we go.
Nice.
And you'll actually do that. You're a client for 2 years, not for 2 months.
Yeah.
We never yo-yo. We never have people lose large amounts of weight in a short time.
Yeah.
Go on holiday and they come back 7 kilos heavier just because they had a relaxed holiday. That is sort of a unique angle we have, and we understand the customer. Like, we understand who we're speaking to. That they do have kids in the business,
and you said that to me the first time we ever spoke, and it was, look, I understand that you've got all of this going on in life, and I thought, gosh, I really felt listened to, because normally I feel like I'm speaking to someone and they're on a different island, I'm on a different island, and we're trying to meet somewhere in the middle of this random ocean, and I really felt listened to. I thought, okay, I can get on board with this. So kind of going back to that initial conversation of you've got at least 10% of your client base that comes here and says, I've had an injury, or I want to be able to lift my kids. I want to be able to play with my children. So what does that look like? What does that mean in the gym practically? So I'm 40-year-old, male, female, and I want to be able to literally carry my children more.
Yeah. I mean, let's say a child is going to weigh 11 kilos, 15 kilos maybe. You're in the gym, you're squatting a 20 kilo, 15 kilo bar minimum. You're trying to improve your pull-ups, you're trying to do hangs, some compound movements, lunges. All of those are going to increase the strength of your muscle, also the durability of your muscle, and it all just falls in line with being able to play with your kids, carry your dogs, or go in the park with your dog. Moving houses is also a big thing for us. People have injuries moving houses, or they tried to move house and they realized they couldn't actually lift anything. Yeah. And they're like, I've had to get someone to do absolutely everything in this case, and I should have been able to do a few of these bits and pieces myself. So I think just getting in the gym, even if it's once a week, and doing the main lifts for that 60 minutes is very crucial to being able to have a better day-to-day life.
And what are the main lifts? So are you talking powerlifting lifts, or what
we rotate our movements so that people don't become too obsessed with only getting good at a deadlift or a squat or a bench press, because they also then only rely on progressive overload. That's a very in-depth conversation, but we don't get people to focus too much on progressive overload, because then they become safe. They also don't create any imbalances. But that would be in the list, like a pull-up, dips, squats, lunges, deadlifts, or a hip hinge of some sort. There should be core movements as well.
What does a hip hinge mean?
So like an RDL or a hip thrust, something that basically makes your hips move backwards and then come forwards under tension. List of 5 or 6 things that you should absolutely do. There should be some core training, because now there's also a stigma or a culture, if you want to call it, of abs are made in the kitchen.
Yeah, okay.
And I also bench and squat every week, so I don't need to train abs.
Yeah.
That's really simple. That's stripping it down too much.
Yeah.
You should
got to do some sit-ups as well, though.
Yeah, spinal flexion, yeah, at least once a week. You know, it's good for you.
Yeah.
And if we're being really minimal, as I said, 60 minutes, pretty useful for improving strength, improving day-to-day life. I've said to you, I'm sure before, 120 minutes in the gym is double as effective as the next 120 minutes. Yeah. And that's double as effective as the next 120 minutes. So, we sell the 6 sessions or come to the gym 6 times a week. If you've been with us for a long time, or if I think someone actually has nothing to do, they're pretty much unemployed or already super rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the middle ground is like get to the gym twice.
Yeah.
You fix a lot of wrongs just with that. Yeah. If you end up building routine, we can make it 3 times. Yeah. And once again, understanding the customer. Yeah. The person's like, great, if I can only have to do 2, I could fit a Monday or Thursday in. Yeah. I'm gonna get in and do that. And then when they like us and they have some rhythm, they say, I'm gonna get a third session in. And I'd like to think that after a year or even 6 months of that, they can play with their kids. Carry 2 or 3 of their kids, not just 1. Yeah. Not be hesitant to do that. Yeah. Or not have had a back problem when they previously played with their child, and now they're like, I'm not sure, I'm just going to leave them to it.
And it's so interesting because so I've always lifted, and historically I've done it on my own or with friends or whatever. But over the last year or so, I thought, gosh, I need to really get back into a personal trainer. I need some accountability because I thought, well, you have children, you have a business, you have a stressful lifestyle, so you pack on the pounds because it's too easy, right? I'm training, but I'm not training that hard. I'm eating, but kind of eating whatever I feel like. And so here we go. But and it was actually, I had my annual conference last November. The photos came out. I thought, oh God, that's bad, isn't it? And I was like, is that what I look like to everyone else? And I thought, okay, right, I need to really think about this. And I started then working with you guys more, robustly. But the initial thing, frankly, was me thinking weight loss, right? I need some accountability for that. So that started happening, and I'm like, okay, great. But what I didn't expect, because I lift regularly anyway, was feeling so much stronger. And I think that working with a personal trainer, it's like having a coach in a business setting or whatever. You're going to do 1 more rep. You're going to train a little bit harder. Yeah. And now I sort of feel like even just standing up from seated without touching anything, whatever, I just feel that's easier. I feel kind of, I know I can go longer with kids and whatever. I feel more energetic.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many perks outside of just the aesthetic.
Yeah. I mean, the aesthetic has now become really low on the priority list. I'm thinking, actually, even with the weight loss, I'm thinking, well, the weight loss is not me thinking about my gut and how I look in a tux. It's more me thinking about how much pressure am I putting on my heart? How long am I going to be around for my kids?
Yeah, and that kind of falls into the topic today, which is, you having higher body fat means that you have lower testosterone. Yeah. Which leads to multiple other things being worse. Also your bone density gets, it changes over time. So you just being in the gym means that doesn't occur. Like saying you have your gut decreases and you look better in the tux, but also your testosterone stays high, your recovery stays good, and your sleep remains deep.
And are there numbers around this? Testosterone numbers, hours of sleep.
So beyond 30, in your 40s, beyond 30, your testosterone starts to decrease a little bit. Yeah, but quite marginally. I would say 0.5, 1% a year max. Okay. And beyond 40, that becomes 1 to 2%. Beyond 50, that could become 2 to 3%. So compounding. You could have a 10 to 20% decrease 50 plus. You could have a 10% decrease 40 plus, which is quite a lot. That means,
that's
from
loads.
30 to, like I said, if you understand how compounding works, that means from 30 to 60 years old, you could literally, I don't know what the actual number would be, and it depends on the person, right? 3% a year is a lot. That means you're very unhealthy and you have some serious issues. You're actually not, there's no movement in your week. Your nutrition is terrible. You're going through quite a lot of muscle loss. But amount of muscle falls directly in line with amount of testosterone. So someone less muscular will have less testosterone.
Yeah.
Maybe not compared to another person, because a guy could have a really high starting point and someone doesn't have a very high starting point. But there's definitely a positive correlation between a guy's muscle density and how much testosterone he has, and we need to kind of take care of that. What you're saying is basically you're aesthetically looking better, but now you're also taking care of all the other wrongs that could have occurred from you just not training at all.
Yeah. And that's really, really interesting. So my testosterone levels will stagnate or increase by increasing muscle mass at my age.
At the bare minimum, you won't let it drop.
Yeah.
So like, you think of a man at 30 years old, he doesn't have low testosterone unless he has a really bad life habits already, and you need to protect that more than you need to increase your testosterone. If you're, like I said, you're a lifestyle client. If I'm speaking to an athlete or a bodybuilder, I would be pushing.
I was an athlete, but all right, okay, I'm sitting right here.
I would be pushing for them to have better testosterone levels or trying to fix that in some way. And half the time, if someone goes from like 35% body fat to 15, they will have it, because it's such a big life change and such a big composition change. They are able to increase rather than just maintain.
Excellent, that's really
like the stance should be protecting, not going up or becoming superhuman at 55. You know.
And what about bone density again in that age group? So if you think sub 50 for now,
bone density decreases with age, but much more aggressively with lack of movement.
Okay.
So someone's testosterone is gonna change at a certain rate, but your bone density is gonna change at a certain rate with age. But bone density can be accelerated by just not using your bones. Having no heavy load, having no impact for it to deal with, because there's no reason for it to be. There's no reason to have bone density if you're not actually moving or doing a labor job or training in the gym. Yeah,
and is that the same for men and women on both those things?
Well, women is estrogen, not testosterone.
Yeah,
the same thing, but just women's a little bit different because a woman from the age of 40 to 55 will basically have a year or two where it takes a drastic drop. It's not compounding; it just goes. Let's say the estrogen might be half where it was in such a short window.
And that's because of menopause?
It's called menopause, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what menopause technically is.
So menopause is just estrogen
their reproductive system changes. Yeah, the estrogen drops off in line. Men and women both have. So you have estrogen, which will always be at a ratio way less than your testosterone, but you need both. And then women have high estrogen and they have testosterone in their own ratio. So both things drop off. We need both. And then, you start having moods and other hormones going wrong, and, recovery goes bad. Insomnia starts occurring in people. There's so many. So for women, the stance should be to delay menopause or make it as late as possible. And then when it happens, work around it. And for men, it should just be to, try and slow down the rate at which it's occurring or stop it altogether.
And so thinking about women in that age group, so a woman in her 40s right now that's lifting regularly, is that the thing that's going to help delay menopause and the drop?
100%. Maybe that woman with a bad lifestyle would have gone through menopause at the age of 42, and now maybe with a good lifestyle, she actually doesn't have to face that until 52. You could give them a 10-year gap between, being. I mean, kids is not. No one at 52 is like, oh, I'm glad I can still have kids. Well, not many people.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like I said, there's bigger issues beyond that. And childbirth in general is decreasing.
Yeah.
More people don't want children.
But also, I think it really comes down to really that health piece as well, doesn't it? I mean, I think there is practicality of life in the age and stage that we're at, and I'd be really interested to hear from you about if you were advising someone, male or female, or maybe both people, in their 40s, to think with a man, it's about keeping that muscle mass high, the testosterone levels kind of sustained and continuing. With a woman, it's thinking maybe about that menopause and how do I push that out? What would be your piece of advice to those parties in their 40s?
So I think my first piece of advice would, I'd number one, ask them, are they training or are they going and doing any sort of sport? It can be team sport, individual sport. Are they running? Are they swimming? It doesn't necessarily have to be in the gym. The gym, for me, is the most optimal way to fix health issues or improve quality of health and improve longevity in general. But not everyone likes to go gym, and some people find it a little bit intimidating, or they think that it's the wrong environment for them. And I say, okay, then swim or play football or whatever you did as a teenager and just stop doing from a certain age. Go back to it, even if it's 20 minutes a week. You're still moving in the right direction. For men, it becomes am I going to be good at this, or am I going to do this regularly? They have a much more mental approach where they want to conquer a thing rather than just do it. For women, there's a much higher social element. So I think team sport is better for women for that reason. They like meet their girls or their the peers that also have kids, and they get to have coffee and then go and do yoga or Pilates or gym together. I would say, so number one piece of advice is movement. Number two would be blood work. So you don't actually know where you stand.
Yeah.
So,
so what should you do?
I'm hypothetically speaking about a guy and a woman at whatever age.
Yeah.
Decreasing, but what's the starting point?
Yeah.
And what other complications might you have? Maybe your blood sugar is super sensitive. Maybe you are already very high testosterone, so just genetically, or very low, whether you train or don't train. So I'd say go do your blood work, get everything screened. See what your cortisol levels are like. Do you stress easily, or do you just have very high cortisol levels, which you have to deal with? And then use that as a base of what my next step is.
That's very interesting. And do you do that here?
We don't do that at Job Gym because we're automated.
Yeah.
And we can assign a client to someone we recommend or that we have used.
Yeah.
For that, but we can't in-house have someone taking blood.
So I
it's just easy nowadays as well.
No, it's so easy.
You can get someone to literally come to your house and do it, and it's more expensive and very quick results. And we have the ability to analyze that and look at it and say, okay, your cortisol is super high and your testosterone is quite low. You also have bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
But we don't actually do it ourselves.
I did this about 2 years ago. Actually, it was from a conversation that you and I had. It kind of got me thinking about something, and I thought, well, actually, I need benchmark data. So for when I'm older,
exactly, have a benchmark.
And I thought, so this was about 2 years ago. So I was probably about 36 at the time, and I just did full set of bloods, and I'm actually due to do something again. I was going to do like a Wellman or whatever, and I just went to a local pharmacy and they sent it off, and it was great. They gave me this report, this doctor's report, and all that kind of thing, saying, here you go, here's where it should be, here's where it is, great, you're happy here, you're not happy here, and whatever, and off we go. I thought that was super interesting, very easy to do. Depending on what you want, the pricing is not nuts either. So it's an intriguing.
Even that itself, people are unsure of what they should actually screen for.
Yeah.
Like the pharmacist is going to sell you a menu of a million things, and they're going to want you to pick as many of those as possible because it makes it more.
It's a business as well.
Even just specifying to a client that you need to test these 5 or 6.
So what are they?
And then they can kind of go off and come back with the leanest version of what they need.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest with you, a lot of clients, they just do loads of different variables anyway, so because they want to know out of curiosity.
Yeah. That's where I was at. I was like, okay, I want benchmark information, but also, what does it look like, right? And
so I mean, usually, we want to know testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, as I mentioned, blood sugar, if they have hemoglobin is not really a thing for people who do weights, but more so for people who are endurance sports. Red blood cells, white blood cells. We check at least 5 of those regularly if we get asked to, and the rest is beneficial if you want to be optimal.
Yeah, nice.
But not cholesterol. Sorry, LDL, HDL. Yeah. Knowing if someone's cholesterol level is high, and getting people to step away from just thinking that cholesterol is purely what they eat and not so much what they physically are like. Yeah. It's like eggs. We discussed eggs briefly and how everyone said that eggs are causing high cholesterol and heart disease, and I've never not eaten a whole egg in my life.
Yeah.
I never actually believed in that. Yeah. And now we've done this big rotation, and people are back, and they're like, "Oh, egg yolks are really good for you."
Yeah. Like, so is butter.
Like there's a man out there that didn't eat butter or egg yolks for 20 years, reading articles.
So what a sad life.
We got to just enjoy breakfast.
So exactly. Come on, let's get some cheese in that thing, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
So we then move into our 50s, and our problems change. Maybe if I'm a woman, I've kind of gone into that menopause. Maybe I'm coming out of that. If I'm a man, maybe my testosterone levels have been depleting over all of these years. So now what? When I'm a 50-year-old male or female, I come to you and I say, hey, look, I want this to change, right? Yep. So I've now got a multitude of issues. I've never trained before, and the gym feels like a pretty intimidating place because there's all these kind of, gym bros everywhere, and it's a very young person's game. Don't know. Yeah. I kind of feel the demographic here is slightly different, but also, why am I here? What's going on?
50 plus, let's speak about people in their 60s as well. You get into a range where now you can only be so explosive.
Yeah.
And it's not so much just about doing the movements you know or you like. I actually say you should go gym once a week. Mm-hmm. There's no me letting you pick.
Yeah.
Your favorite form of activity.
Yeah.
But get in the gym and
to lift.
Yeah, actually lift once a week now. It doesn't have to be 2-3 times, but as from a maintenance approach, I want you to get in and do at least 1 hour. And this will make sure that you have no issues of bone density or muscle density. We discussed before, you go to a care home and a death sentence is having a hip displacement.
Yeah.
As much, if not more so, than having some sort of cardiovascular or blood sugar problem.
Yeah.
Because once you can't do that, you can't move. And if you can't move, you mentally and physically deteriorate.
Yeah.
And for us, I would say, okay, you're 50, 60 years old. Make sure you don't get a hip displacement by just being strong and having good squats and good lunges in your life once a week. And I'm practically, by doing that, guaranteeing that you don't deteriorate if that ever occurs. And the percentage of people that actually have that sort of issue because they've fallen over, they break their toe, ankle, something happens from a fall, not from they're actually eating really healthy breakfast, lunch, dinner. They're not snacking massively. They're drinking good amounts of water. So like I said, it goes into a stance of get to the gym.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so the next part would be, have a social element to your life.
Yeah.
So this stands outside of the gym, and Drop Gym is not really a community gym in terms of we host classes or we have group events, but our members and clients know each other. Yeah. We're like a topic amongst our.
Yeah, it is.
And this is something we're massively working on right now. Introducing like a golf club for the men.
Yeah.
And introducing like a stretch class plus a community group chat for the women across our gyms, having a pre-postnatal group. It is literally something we're going to launch in maybe 2 months.
I think that pre-postnatal thing is really interesting because I think certainly for the clients that I know that come here, so many of the females have come here post having children and then thinking, okay, well, I want to, I need to get my body back to track, and lifting has been really interesting for that because there's a huge community. It's either this or I find people getting into reformer Pilates. And, even from a, not even talking male female there, I started a whole segment of reformer Pilates before this is when you can actually get into the classes. Now they're so overrun that you can't get a damn booking.
Yeah. It's a huge demand for Pilates right now. And for me personally, I think it's very good for coordination.
Yeah.
And for balance. And there is some aesthetic changes, but the issue is that a lot of women they kind of book up classes and they go very frequently, assuming that it's going to actually make them more muscular or lean.
Yeah.
On top of what I just said, which is coordination and balance and mobility.
And it doesn't do that?
Nowhere nearly as effective as other forms of fitness. Definitely nothing compared to weight training. They just don't know that. Yeah. I'm not going to stand outside a Pilates class with a banner.
I'll do it. We can go now.
I'm sure. But eventually people kind of wake up to that and they end up transitioning away from it.
I think, look, just speaking from my own perspective, I'm here 4 times a week. I enjoy it as well. I've got to say, I look forward to coming to the gym, which I know is not necessarily a normal thing, but well, I like doing it. I like lifting. But then I think the only reason that my thinking was I don't stretch enough on my own because I don't like stretching. And so, again, it's that accountability piece of saying, well, can I keep the flexibility in my muscle because I'm lifting and it makes it tighter and shorter? Can I make it, longer? And that's, so that's like 1 hour of stretching a week or whatever, as opposed to saying the stretching is my training.
I mean, I'm sure you enjoyed it more as you did it more because you became better at it.
Yeah.
And people in general, they enjoy things they're good at.
Yeah.
Not everything that gets you somewhere in life has to actually be enjoyable necessarily. Like long distance runners, they don't run 30k and on the 15th kilometer say this is great. I love doing this. But they know they're doing a good time and they're pretty accomplished at it, and then they get to the end of it and there's endorphins and they understand that they've achieved something. Women need to get in the gym and be comfortable in the gym and learn how to train and feel like they're getting better at training and they're improving their health alongside that, and then they'll enjoy it. Not because squats are easy, but because they know how to do squats. Pilates, they get guided by someone and put through a certain routine and a schedule. There's so much unlikeliness of them making mistakes. Plus, it's much more affordable than necessarily like having a PT necessarily, and it's not intimidating. But we're not intimidating. We discussed that earlier. That this is a very female-friendly space.
Yeah, it's that's a really interesting thing. I will come back to the over 50s, but as we've gone into that, one of the things I have found coming here is that historically, I think about gyms, and I think about gyms that I've trained in for 20 years, and it is male dominated, especially the free weight section. It is all bros, gym bros. It is all vests and biceps and grunting and shouting and all of that, right? And gym talk and so on. The PTs are kind of sketchy as well. But I find coming here, there is. I mean, you were saying you've got 60% female clients.
So our sites
that.
will range from 50 to 60% female members and clients.
That is, I mean, honestly, I find that shocking for a gym that focuses on lifting. And actually, I think about it from then I flip the thinking and think, well, I think about my own situation. I think about my wife, who I've been together, we've been together for 15 years, and I've never been able to get her into a gym to lift. I mean, she's come with me a few times, but doesn't like it. Also, it's really awkward, and people are staring and all that kind of thing. She's been training here now, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, and A, she really enjoys it. B, she has a great female PT, and I've had some female PTs here as well, and I think wonderful. That I feel there's no difference in the experience that I'm having between male and female PTs. Also, it is, I'm saying this as a client perspective, not intimidating. How have you done that? And what was that? Was that on purpose? Was that by accident? How does that happen?
So just going back to your wife, our sites could have, depending on the size, maybe 4 female trainers, up to 10 female trainers. At least half of those will be pre-postnatal qualified.
Yeah, great.
And also, if they're pre-postnatal qualified, the majority of them actually have children, because the whole learning about going through it are two very different things. This gym, in terms of equipment, is based on a very similar equipment list to the gym I grew up in, which was old, rusty, what you just described. Vests and weights being thrown around, loud music, chaos. I liked chaos at that age. It's like an aggressive environment. It gets you into But and I love the fact that my gym that I grew up in was not very big, but very efficiently equipped. So what we've done is have that, almost the same equipment list. But it's just nice. We smell good. We look good. We clean the gym twice a day. Everything is, all the equipment is female friendly. We have more glute and hamstring machines than we have chest machines. We make most of our machines clip based, so you don't have to load off a weight. You just change a clip. It's deliberately designed to be like that. And guys are easy to impress. You have 50 kilo dumbbells and you have.
I'm happy, right? You know, I
great.
walked into this place. I thought, I'm hung. You know, this is a place that used to train at when I was 18. And it's nice. It's got sanitary products I don't need, but I'm like, oh, this is interesting. You have air freshener. What the hell's that about in the gym?
Exactly,
you know?
exactly.
It's great, right?
So it's like we actually, in a sense, we are aggressive in our equipment choice.
Yeah.
But everything around that is nice and you know, well looked after. And people, gym etiquette is good. You know, we have an anti-tripod rule. You can't have a PT or be recording content while you're training and have a member in the background.
Yeah.
No one can be in you know, topless or aggravate or bother another member.
Yeah.
It never happens, but it's there. It exists. And people like that. Now, honestly, I'd say when I taught people, at least 1 in 10 also has, you know, when I told them that we don't have tripods, they're like, great. Because they've had a scenario where previously that pissed them off somewhere. Yeah. You know, they were in someone's recording or they had to like walk around their camera to get to something in the gym, and this is sort of annoying, and I have nothing to do with this guy or this girl's social media or their coaching or whatever they're doing it for.
Well, it's just not respectful, right? You're in the gym, you know, and it's really funny. My wife looks at me like, what are you wearing to the gym? I'm like, hey, it's 6 a.m. There's no one there. There's no one on the street. She's like, you can't wear that. I sort of come here, and I don't want to be in someone's social media unless it's my own and then it's curated, right?
You're like, the point is I can wear that.
I can wear that, right? And I'm like, but it's very funny because then I come at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, she's like, how come you're wearing your nice trainers? You know, I'm like, well, there's people on the street now, you know. So, but it's really interesting because then it becomes your choice. Whereas, you know, a lot of times you go into a gym, you don't know if you're in someone's B-roll, right? You know, it's like you're there, and so I think that's a really respectful thing to
and I think that also curates a crowd of people that actually are in their own bubble and training themselves. Yeah, and they don't really care what anyone else is doing because no one cares about what they're doing.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what I'd like to know is 3 things that I should do. You talked about your 40s, so let's maybe talk about over 50s. 3 things that I should do if I'm a male or I'm a female in my over the age of 50, and that is for lifting, diet, sleep, whatever you want. Here are my 3 hard-hitting things.
So, like I said earlier, number 1 is get in the gym, non-optional anymore. And number 2 would be add a social element to your life. So that's not actually necessarily in the gym, but maybe you go to, you know, classes where you learn how to prep food. Maybe you do go Pilates as an additional piece to your 1 or 2 workouts in the week. I have a lot of relatives and I'm around a lot of old people, and we have quite a high demand of clients that are in their 50s, 60s. I do see them, you know, getting their health really good, but then there is a social thing that's missing, and I believe that both cause complications in the future. I'd say the third thing is quite niche. You know, there's a you know, media tells you should have loads of protein, and that protein intake should be really high. As you get older, let's say you are 50, 60 years old, you know, your maintenance calories drop. So now you can't eat 2,200 calories, you eat 1,600 calories maybe past a certain age, because you know you're kind of older and you're moving less and things change, your body changes, your testosterone does drop anyway, or it just kind of stays at a certain level. So I always recommend that they don't focus so much on protein and focus on energy. Because listen, you're eating very protein heavy foods, which is fine, but you're not going to get more muscular when you're 60. And you're killing your ability to eat foods that give you energy, which is healthy carbs and healthy fats. So I actually asked them to change the ratio. I say, how about we dumb down the protein a little bit and use those extra calories to, you know, have an extra, spoon of peanut butter in a day, or some olives or avocado or whatever it might be, to make sure that energy levels are good and you feel good. And if you feel good, you're more likely to go gym and train and eat well anyway. So that's probably my third tip of those things.
Nice, great. Thank you very much. What a great episode. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Topic.
Right. Until next time. All right.